Welcome to this episode of Crack and Brew, where we crack packs, look for legendary creatures, and see if we can brew a deck out of it. Today we're looking at the Lost Caverns of Ixalan. Let's go ahead and get this thing started. If I can get into this pack. Here we go. Alright, I never know which way these go. Let's see. No, I don't think this is the right side. Hold on, let me flip it over. Okay, here we go. All right, hidden cataract? I don't know. It enters the battlefield tap, and you can make a blue. Move on. Ancestral's Age. Target creature gets +2/+0 and gains first strike until the end of turn and create a treasure token. So that's pretty good. A pump spell and a treasure token for 2. Cosmunum Blast. Deals 4 damage. Target attacking creatures. For 4 and a black, you get the Ray of Ruin. Exile target creature, vehicle, or non-basic land, and scry 1. Sage of Days, 2 and a blue. When Sage of Days enters the battlefield, look at the top 3 cards of your library, and you may put one of those cards back on top of your library and put the rest into your graveyard. So, I don't know. After this age, another. Guardian of the Great Door for 2 white. As an additional cost to cast a spell, tap 4 untapped artifacts, creatures, and or lands you control. Has flying. Nope. Geological Appraiser. When Geological Appraiser enters the battlefield, if you cast it, discover 3. And discover is exile cards at the top of your library until you exile a non-land card with mana value 3 or less and cast it without paying its mana cost. Or put it into your hand and put the rest in the bottom in a random order. For 3 and red, we get Curator of the Sun's Creation, and whenever you discover, you just get to discover again for the same value. But only once each turn. Inverted Iceberg, 1 and a blue. It's an artifact, and when Inverted Iceberg enters the battlefield, mill a card, then draw a card. And you can craft with artifacts. Ooh, nice. We got a legendary creature. Don Andreas the Renegade. Let's go. Each creature you control but don't own gets +2/+2, has Menace and Death Touch, and is a pirate in addition to its other types. And whenever you cast a non-creature spell you don't own, create 2 tapped treasure tokens. Alright, this is pretty dope. Especially because you can use things like Claim the Firstborn and steal some stuff. Oh, nice. We even got a mythic. The Skullspawn Nexus. A lot of mana. Costs X less to cast. That's good. Where X is the amount of power among creatures you control. Okay, so you can probably cast it for just 2 green. And then pay 2, double target creature's power until the end of turn. And 1,000 Moonsmith. This is a really good deck. We got 2 rares and a mythic. When 1,000 Year Smithy enters the battlefield, create 2 white gnome soldier artifact tokens. Power and toughness are equal, don't really care. And we've got that. So, pretty excited about the legendary creature that we pulled. So if we can cast spells from whenever you cast a non-creature spell you don't own. Okay, so we can cast spells that we don't own to make treasures. Oh, this is going to be so much fun to build. I am excited. Let's build us a pirate deck. But before we get started, let's go ahead and visit the Lost Caverns of Ixalan. We have to go back to the Phyrexians, and after the Great War with the Phyrexians, the land of Ixalan was quiet once again. Its people were safe, but also curious. Strange omen path, mystical doorways between worlds had opened, bringing new travelers and whispers of treasure deep below its surface. Some said that Ixalan was not just a solid world, but hollow inside, and in the middle of that hollow was a glowing inner sun called Chamil. Surrounded by riches beyond imagination, the bravest explorers began to gather crews to journey down into the unknown. Now 4 heroes answered this call. There was Huatli, the warrior poet of the Sun Empire, Sahili, the genius inventor who wanted to study the wonders hidden underground, Quintorius, once just a student of history, now a powerful planeswalker with magic of his own, and Kellen, a newcomer from another world traveling through the Omen Pass to find his destiny. But they weren't the only ones headed below. The legions of dusk, vampires, conquerors from across the sea, marched underground too, chasing legends of their dark god. Azgalotsats, the bat god of night. They believed that within the earth was the key to his full power. Now these explorers found twisting tunnels, crystal-lit caverns and rivers that glowed from strange minerals, and then, after a long and dangerous journey, they saw it, the core of Ixalan, a vast inner world bathed in pink gold light from Chamil, the inner sun. Now floating around Chamil were glittered shards of cosminium, a magic metal that could shape the future of the world. But Chamil's light was guarded by the Othtek, an ancient people who had lived here since before anyone in the surface kingdom could remember. They lived in the shining city of Bankoi, raised great stone guardians and teaching their children to ride giant bats up to Chamil to collect the Cosmin shards. Now among the Ostok were Malamant warriors with speed and strength, jaguars who protected their home fiercely. Now this core, as beautiful as it was also very dangerous. There were deserts with deadly sand magic and ruined cities filled with old traps, and worst of all, the Micrantite, a vast living fungus that could control the minds of anyone who touched it. Whole armies had been turned into shambling servants because of this fungus. And the deepest shadows, the Vampire Legion of Dusk, made their move. Guided by dark rituals, they sought to awaken Azgalots and claim the core for themselves. Now, if they succeeded, Ixalan's future would fall into an endless night. Hatu and her friends joined forces with the Otlek to protect Chamil. Shahil used her inventions to build defenses. Quantorius read ancient carvings that told how to weaken Azgalots' power, and Kellen braved the quickening pits of the Malamant to prove his courage. Now when the vampires attacked, the core erupted into chaos. Stone guardians clashed with bloodthirsty knights, bat riders swooped through the air, and Camille's light shone brighter than ever, burning back the darkness. And in the end, the explorers helped the Ostlik defend their home. The Legion of Dusk retreated, but not before taking some cosminium with them, promising that they would return. The migrant still lurks in the shadows, waiting for another chance to spread. But for now, Ixalan heart is safe. The songs of journey echo through the Sun Empire, telling of a glowing inner world, ancient guardians, and the brave heroes who fought for it. And somewhere, far below the surface, the inner sun still burns. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed that little lore review of Lost Caverns of Ixalan. I kind of enjoy doing that, and I also enjoy really being able to find cards that go with the lore. So any card that can go with the lore kind of is fun to do for me. So let's go ahead and look at some of the cards that I have found, and we'll see if they're worth putting in the deck or not. So we have Valgavoth, pretty good card. We are going to have to sacrifice creatures that we steal, and if they go to the graveyard, then we can at least put them into exile and maybe play them later. We've got things to steal stuff like Awaken the Sleeper, Kari, Act of Treason, Wrangle, Vengeful Possession, which also lets us draw a card, and Claim the First Board, which is a card I've been playing for a long time that I really enjoy. We also are going to need to be able to cast things from the top of players' libraries and or have some sort of creatures and creatures with effects that do that. So Ragavand is definitely one of those cards that works for that. We have this Saga, which we get to exile the top 3 cards of opponent's library and cast those later, maybe. Invert Polarity. We can gain control of a spell. Insurrection could be a win con. There's Ashiok, Sculptor of Fears, and it has gain control of all creatures target opponent grows for 11. I don't know if that's going to be worth it or not, or if we could even get to that. Reno and Rude, if they deal combat damage to a player, we can exile the cards. Cruel Claw's Heist. Opponent reveals their hand, and we can choose an online card from it, exile it. We can promise a gift and cast it, as long as it's removed. Dire Fleet Daredevil allows us to cast instant sorceries from other people's graveyards. Tasha allows us to cast things as well. But also her static ability isn't terrible. Whenever we cast a spell that we don't own, we can create a 3/3 black demon creature token. So not terrible there. Thief of Sanity is really a good card. Gyruda is pretty fun because we can blink it. Usually I had a Gyruda deck before and we would copy Gyruda, but if we can get Gyruda out, blink him, have people flip cards, it puts stuff in their graveyard, and also if we're lucky we'll be able to get a creature that we don't own. Ranger kind of does the same thing. We can gain control. Okay, so Grinzo has an interesting ability. Usually I think of him as like a goading creature, but really we can exile a top card of that player's library also until the end of turn and cast a card. And we can spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast that spell. So that's kind of a cool card. These kind of cards I'll probably trade out with Pirates later. We're going to go ahead and take a look at EDH Rec after we look at our deck on Scryfall. And maybe we can find some inexpensive cards that we can trade these out for. But basically when this one enters the battlefield, we can exploit, so we can sacrifice an artifact or a creature, and then we can gain control of the creature or not till the end of turn. Enthralling Victor kind of does the same thing, but only for mana power 2 or less. Chaos Wand allows us to cast stuff. These are all cards that I could get rid of if later. We are pirates, and so I thought maybe it would be interesting to do some sort of a Revel in Riches pirate treasure theme. I'm not really sure if I'm going to hang on to that or not. But these are cards that I found that could be interesting, like Malcolm Kenai Navigator makes us treasures. This Emporium Master makes us treasures. Okay. And then I wasn't sure also, we have some more expensive pirates, some things, and with blue and black, I always like discarding cards and then being able to cast things out of my graveyard or get them out of my graveyard. So Umbral Caller Zealot is probably one of the newest creatures that came out that I'm really excited for, because we're going to have to sacrifice the cards anyway at the end of our end step. So we might as well sacrifice them during our second main phase after we've attacked with them. The cards, the creatures that we steal from our opponents, and then at least we can surveil. So pretty cool card there. Here's another thing, just another sacrifice. We can draw cards. Here's another one. We can either draw cards or deal damage. Ashnod's Altar, we can sacrifice those creatures that we steal. Here's another thing that we can sacrifice, maybe get some more mana if we need to. I don't know that I'm going to use all of these. And then, of course, I threw in some card draw, just some basic card draw. Sorry about the flashing. Once again, I have traded out everything I can think of to get this flashing to stop with this camera, and I don't know. So I do apologize for that. So just some basic card draw. Phyrexian Arena, Witch's Mark. We can discard a card, maybe pull it out of our graveyard later. Throw possibilities the same. This Seymour Flux I found was kind of interesting because we can pay 1 life and draw a card and put a 1/1 counter on it. We have Village Rites, Windfall if we want to, Morbid Opportunist. Things are going to be dying in this deck, so at least once per turn we could probably draw a card off of him. Okay, let's talk about a board wipe or two. This 0-point Ballad is kind of a new board wipe. Destroy all creatures with toughness X or less. You lose X life. If X is 6 or more, return a creature card put into a graveyard this way. So we can take one of our opponent's cards and we can go ahead and steal that. Not sure for sure if this is something I want to use, but I thought it was interesting. This Aggravated Assault, we could get an extra attack step if we wanted to off of those creature cards that we steal. Meat Hook Maskers, always a good one. And then we are going to be blinking stuff instead of making copies. I think we can blink with Ghostly Flicker, this Planar of Incision, Essence Flux. And then we just have some mana ramp, so we can sacrifice one of the creatures that we get from our opponent, add some black mana, cast another spell. Cursed Mirror, we got a Sticker Goblin, Pea-Brain Goblin. I think I'm supposed to keep the stickers on the sticker sheet, but I stuck it on this one. We have our Soul Rings, our Wayfarer's Bauble, our Arcane Signets, our Mind Stones, our Talisman of Indulgence, the Rakdos Signet. And then if you wanted to add some kill spells to this, I'm not sure if we're going to want to or not, but I just usually put in the cheapest ones, the ones that I think are pretty good. Usually instants, not sorceries. So Infernal Grasp. This is a new one here, Embrace Oblivion. It is a sorcery, but as an additional cast of spell, we can sacrifice a creature or artifact, destroy a creature or spacecraft. Just one of the newer cards, just kind of want to take a look at it. Shieldred's Edict is kind of a staple. This Flare of Malice is a pretty good staple for killing things. And then we do have some reanimation. So if we want to get our Valgavoth early, maybe we find some pirates on EDH Rec that are better than some of the things that we have, or we have a big creature that costs a lot, sometimes it's best to just bury them and then bring them back. So we do have Buried Alive, we have Stir the Grave. Now, Stir the Grave, return target creature card with converted mana cost X from our graveyard. It would probably be better to have all our reanimation spells be able to take cards from any graveyard. That way we can get our opponents. But these are options, right? These are just some of that I have. Quest for Necropolis has landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under control, we can put a quest counter on it. We can pay 5 and a black and sacrifice it. But it does cost 1 less to cast for each quest counter. I don't know that this enchantment is a good enchantment. It was just something I saw. The things I normally use are like this. I use Animate Deads, Dance of the Dead, right? Dread Return, Rise from the Grave. We can put a target creature from a graveyard onto the battlefield. Yes, it costs 5. It's a little bit more expensive, but if there's a really good card out there that we want, we can go ahead and take that and then get all the perks from our commander. Gamble and just a little tutor. You could add tutors or not. I don't know. I don't know if this deck needs any game changers, quote unquote. But anyways, I think this is going to be a fun deck to build. Let's go over to the Scryfall list and look at some of the cards that we have, kind of put them in order, and then we'll go to EDH Rec and see if there's some better cards that we can get for under $10 to make this deck really pop. All right, let's go ahead and look at this deck. Don Andreas the Renegade. Each creature you control but don't own gets +2/+2, has Menace and Death Touch, and is a pirate in addition to its other types. And whenever you cast a non-creature spell you don't own, create 2 tapped treasure token. It says in the flavor text, why climb the tangled rigging of the Legion of Dusk hierarchy when I can fly a free flag of my own? So, Don Andreas was part of the Legion of Dusk that we learned about a little bit earlier, and he has decided to not be a part of that anymore. He wants to be a pirate and fly his own flag. There are some cards that I could not find that I owned that once I got onto EDH Rec, saw some pirates, and we're going to talk about those at the end. But let's go ahead and look at the ones that we have now. So we do have Ragavand, Nimble Pilfer. It's a great card. Basically, you get to deal combat damage, exile a top card of a player's library, and cast it and create a treasure token. So in doing that, if we're able to cast something that somebody else owns, that's the whole goal point of this, is we're trying to cast spells from other players' decks and also snatch their creatures. So Dire Fleet Daredevil, when it enters the battlefield, we get to exile target instant or sorcery card from an opponent's graveyard, and if we do, we can cast it, and obviously if we cast it, we get to make 2 tapped treasure tokens. Now Grenzo is interesting. He's able to, I always looked at him for goading target creatures that players control. I didn't always read the bottom text, but whenever he deals combat damage, whenever a creature I control deals combat damage, so it doesn't even have to be him, exile the top card of player's library until the end of turn. You may cast that card. You may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast that spell. So a lot of cards that if they deal damage, we're going to go ahead and exile the top card of a player's library and try to cast a spell. Reno and Rude do a little bit of the same thing. Umbral's Caller Zealot is one of the newer cards. We're going to be stealing creatures from people, and we're going to have to sacrifice them no matter what at the end of turn. So we might as well sacrifice them for a reason. So like Claim the Firstborn, some of those cards like that. So we have Umbral Caller Zealot where we can get some value out of that. Also, this Blood Witch, we can pay 2 to sacrifice a creature. It deals damage to any target. If it's a red creature, we get to deal the damage. If it's a black creature, we get to draw a card. So, and then the Emporium Master is going to allow us to create treasures because we have a side thing of creating treasures because we are pirates and we want to have treasure. And we have a way to win with having treasures. So Malcolm is going to get us treasures too. And then we just have some other things. Now, some of these creatures, when they enter the battlefield, we're going to gain control of a target creature. And that is good, right? But I think there's some of these that we can trade out for better cards. But these are just the cards that I have right now. So we got Thieves of Sanity, this Rangers, okay. We got some card draw. I do love Gyruda, okay, and we're going to have ways that we're not going to make copies of Gyruda, but we can blink it. So we have some cards in here that when they enter the battlefield, they have a trigger, and so we're going to definitely try to at least blink those cards so we can double those triggers. Valgavoth is just a great card because anything that goes to someone's graveyard, we're actually going to get to take it, and we can pay life instead of mana to cast those spells, and since he has lifelink, you're basically getting 9 life every turn to cast spells. Other sack outlets, we've got some mana ramp. I did put a small reanimate package in this. I don't know if it's probably the best thing to do or if I'm trying to branch off into too many ways. So it might be better not to have some sort of a reanimator package. But for some reason, when I play black and blue, I always love to have a reanimator package. And I tried to get some of the reanimator spells that we can reanimate cards from other people's graveyards. Yes, we can reanimate some cards from our graveyard because we are going to have some surveilling and things like that in this deck and ways to discard cards. So if we're discarding a card, drawing 2 cards, at least we might be able to reanimate something that we wanted to that way. We do have some kill spells in here, some just basic draw spells. But like Claim the Firstborn, we can gain control of a target creature. That's really good. We got Wrangle, gain control of target creature with power 4 or less. Active Treason. The Kari Zevs is a great spell that we can gain control. Vengeful Possession. And really the only reason I have Buried Alive in here, I have Buried Alive for Valgavoth. So I'm trying to get Valgavoth and some of my bigger creatures, some of my bigger payouts, maybe some pirates or something. I want to go grab them, put them in the graveyard, and hopefully reanimate them. So you have Insurrection, and then just your basic land package. So a couple of the win cons in here is Insurrection is obviously a win con, and the other one is if we can make enough treasures through Revel and Riches, we can win the game if we have 10 or more treasures. So shouldn't be too hard to make 10 or more treasures. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of the pirates that I wanted to add to this deck, but I don't own at this time. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at EDH Rec and see if we can find some cards that we don't have to spend too much money on, but might make this deck a little bit more synergistic. I would like to find some things that are able to cast spells a little bit better off the top of other players' libraries, and also maybe some draw card spells if a pirate attacks, or something that has a triggered ability where we can draw a card. So let's see what our options are. Okay, choose even or odd. Destroy, don't care about that. Fire Lord, Ozai, not even available yet. The Soulstone, don't care. Okay, so here's some high synergy cards. We have Ramirez, De Petro Pillager. When it enters the battlefield, we lose 2 life and create 2 treasure tokens. Awesome, we can blink him. And then whenever one or more pirates I control deals combat damage to a player, exile a top card of that player's library, and you may cast that card for as long as it remains exiled. So that's an amazing pirate. I think I used to have this pirate. I think it might have been one of the cards I gave away when I was trying to clear out my collection. I also really like this Hostage Taker. For 2, a blue and a black. When Hostage Taker enters the battlefield, we can exile another target creature or artifact until Hostage Taker leaves the battlefield, and I can cast that card for as long as it remains exiled. So the nice thing is it's a creature or artifact, so if we want to steal somebody's Soul Ring or we want to steal somebody's Arcane Signet, and then when we take it, we're also going to make some treasure tokens because we're going to be casting that spell, and it's going to be a non-creature spell. Breaches is a really good card. I like Breaches. He has Menace. He's 3 and a 4. When one or more pirates I control deal damage to an opponent, we get to exile a card of each of those opponents' library, and I may play those cards this turn, and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast this spell. So Breaches is a pretty neat little card. Allows us to cast spells. We already have Thief of Sanity. We already have Atali. We already have some of these other cards in here. We're just looking for maybe 3, 4, 5 cards. Right now we're only up to like, what, 75 cents maybe of cards. So I think for under $5. This Admiral Bracket Brass isn't a bad card. Other pirates we control get +1/+1. And at the beginning of our instep, I can gain control of a target non-land permanent controlled by a player who was dealt combat by 3 or more pirates. That's going to be a little bit tough. I think we're only going to be able to get 1 or 2 pirates through Either something that has some evasion like flying or something else. So I like the enter the battlefield effects more than I like the combat effects and dealing damage effects. Because I find in Commander it's a lot harder to deal damage than it is to just blink something or make a copy of something. Let's take a look at some of these other ones that are in here. Here's some of your basic game changers that I don't think we're really going to play any of in this deck. We already have Grinzo. Saruman's Footman. It can't be blocked. Okay, we could make it a pirate. If we could make it a pirate, it couldn't be blocked. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player exile cards from the top of their library, and we can cast it, blah, blah, blah. And then Van Street Thief from Final Fantasy. Whenever one or more scouts, pirates, and or rogues you control deals combat damage. So that's still a dealing combat damage. Not a big fan of that. I'd rather just blink stuff. Okay. I do like this Brain Stealer Dragon, though. It has flying, and at the beginning of our end step, we can exile the top card of each opponent's library, and we can play those cards for as long as they remain exiled. And if I cast a spell this way, I can spend mana as though it were any color to cast it. And whenever a non-land permanent an opponent owns enters the battlefield under my control, so every time we steal something, every time we cast something that somebody else's, they're going to lose life equal to the mana value. So good reanimation target. And just kind of taking a peek here to see if there's anything else. Here's another new card, this Lock Treasure Hunter. It can't be blocked by creatures with greater power, and wherever it attacks, each player mills a card. If it's a land card, it was milled this way, we get to make a treasure token. And until the end of turn, I can cast a spell from among those cards. Okay. So not a terrible, and he looks a little bit like a pirate. It's pretty good artwork for that. And he's only 49 cents. So we could try it. We could run him for a while and see if we like that. Anyways, lots and lots of cards you could add. You could add Prosper Tomebound, Captain Storm, Captain Lannery Storm, Pitless Plunderer. Lots of pirates you can add. But all in all, I think this is a great deck. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. It gets a lot of the cards out of my folder, or binders, I mean. It gets a lot of cards out of my binder that basically the act of treasons, those cards that take things from people, and gives me some reward for taking that. Is this a great deck? Can it have a lot of win cons? Will it do well? I don't know. I'm going to play some games with it this afternoon, and I will report back to you on how the deck did. Okay, well that's it. We went ahead and made ourselves a deck, and we're going to definitely have to make some changes. I played this a little bit earlier today, had a little bit of hard time with it, but for the most part, I think if we just go to that EDH rec list, grab a couple of those extra synergy cards for $5 to $10, we can make this an amazing deck. So, one last chance. Let's draw 7 cards and see how we do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Let's go ahead and look at our opening hand. We have a Ragavan, a Shivan Reef, Umbrellas, a Watery Grave, and a Talisman. Not a bad starting hand.